Well, I wasn't in too much of a hurry because, well, I mean, there are people on the road that are like, really pieces of work to have to deal with sometimes. Like, they ride my ass sometimes. Like, I'm driving usually. I usually like to drive a little bit under the speed limit just to be safe. But no, they want to get there within 1 minute. But I just want to get there in one piece, as well as my car.
All right. Well, we are live for the 9th episode of Burning Subjects. And
and I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, Steven has been anticipating this one for who knows how long. But this
is Jim anticipating this one?
Well, everyone has been everyone
Why
has.
not? Why don't you?
Because spoiler alert, today's subject is a what is it? Top 10?
Top 15.
Top 15 overrated excursion locomotives, and he didn't put the most overrated one of them all on the list. Fucking Sierra number 3.
But I mean, seriously,
Sierra 3 sucks. Change my mind.
Look, Sierra 3. Look, that's the reason that it's not on the list. Sierra 3.
Again, we'll talk about it in honorable mentions.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in honorable mentions. But either way,
let me guess, you don't know that much about it.
Well, that's one reason.
I don't know much about it either.
And two, it shouldn't be on the list because it's overrated only for its sounds, and that's it. But anyway,
well, I don't know much about it either, actually. But
exactly.
However, people seem to love that thing so much because it was in so many goddamn movies.
It's a movie star, but that's it. Okay. But either way, this episode of Burning Subjects is the top 15 overrated Steam excursion stars. And well, let me just get to the list here. Number 15, number 15. Well, Jim, you were probably gonna know which one this one's gonna be.
Is it Union Pacific 4014?
No, but it is a Union Pacific locomotive.
Is it 844?
Yep. Yeah, it's 8.
Yeah, the living legend, the only steam engine that's never been retired from active service.
Well, to be perfectly honest, I actually like 844 the least of the big 3 UP stars, so let's throw out vote for this one.
Yeah, but anyway.
But that does actually bring a very dark implication, doesn't it?
And not only that, but personally, the FEF ones are my personal favorite out of all the Northerns of the UP.
All right. But either way, what's the history? Even though we've heard the damn story who knows how many times.
Let me give you the short and sweet version. 844, last Union Pacific Northern type locomotive, and the final steam engine built for the Union Pacific. Built in 1944, delivered in December of that year as the most awesome Christmas present of that year. Operated primarily in fast passenger service until 1959, when it was decided that Union Pacific would keep the locomotive for special occasions and some nitty-gritty work. They shopped it, and since 1960, it was primarily put to use for, again, special occasions, like excursion passenger trains. It has never been retired since being first built. It has always remained on the Union Pacific roster since December of 1944. Though it does come at 2 slight costs. One, which is the more obvious one, they had to find a different UP Northern, preferably a fellow FEF3 like the 844, at some point, and they had to use it as a parts donor, which is where the 838 came into play. Like, let me put it this way, people. Whether you like it or not, the 838 is secretly the unsung hero of the UP Steam program. F in the chat, please.
Oh yeah, guys! I added an emoji to this server. It's just an F.
I know.
Anyway,
you butchered the pronunciation, but it was brief. But indeed, it was briefly renumbered to 8444. I believe from 1962 to 1989. That's because Union Pacific ordered a whole batch of GP30 class diesel electric locomotives from E&D, and they decided to number quite a few of them in the 800 series, and they ended up with more GP30s in the 800 series than they had Northern type steam engines. So naturally, the steam engine had to be briefly renumbered in order to maintain its status as never retired.
Now then,
As I was saying, so the true 844, the one that we care about, the big steam engine, that was renumbered to 8444, while that filthy little diesel took its place. And unfortunately, the diesel has been preserved.
And if I'm not mistaken, it's operational as well.
Oh, no.
oh no! But
What the
anyway,
museum should have done was just renumber it to 448 or 488 or something like that.
What's even fun nowadays is that UP has some kind of modern diesel locomotive that they actually numbered to 8444.
Well, not only that, but 8444 or just 840. When it was still 8444, it pulled the Golden Spike Limited part of it at least.
but either way, are we done with
number? But it still pulled the limited.
Are we done with number 15 yet?
No, can we not? Let's not talk about that.
You guys ready for number 14?
What is it?
Mike, you're going to be pissed at this. Number 14. Norfolk and Western Mastodon number 475.
I don't know if I would really consider it overrated, but I guess I can see where you're coming at.
It's the easiest Mastodon to like because it's the only one that's currently at least operational.
Well,
when you think 480, when you think of a Mastodon or a 480, the 475 is the one that springs to mind the first, at least when it comes to people in the United States, because, again, it's the only one that's operational, chilling out at the Strasburg Railroad in Strasburg, Pennsylvania.
And it also takes away the, fame from the other survivor, a.k.a. 433.
Yeah, the one that Steven wants to try getting to operate.
Complete with a massive cosmetic alteration that is going to piss off all the N&W purists ever born.
And not only that, but some functional changes as well.
Wait, functional changes? You didn't say that. Oh, yeah, the oil burnt firing, but that's it.
Also, I think he also wants to add a few other touches to it, but let's talk about the 475.
Yeah. Mike? Mike? Mike! God damn it. Oh, there we go. Okay, there we go. Speak, Mike.
What?
There.
Muted the whole time?
You were!
You've got to be kidding me.
Wait, you mean throughout the whole time since we started this, you made me muted?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't even look.
Oh, Jesus.
You're dumb, Andrew.
Now then, to
Anyway.
the history of the 475.
Hopefully without any unmutings.
The 475 is a 480 Mastodon built by the Baldwin Locomotive Works in 1906. It worked on the Norfolk Western hauling freight and coal trains until it was later reassigned to branch lines duties when bigger locomotives such as the Y6As and Bs, the K-Class 482s, and the Norfolk Western Class A 484s. Later, of course, it was retired in 1956, completing 50 years of service. But around 1957 to 1958, it was bought up as a 19th century locomotive with a fake diamond smokestack and oil headlamp and hold a solemn shift of local passenger train. By 1960 of September, she was put on display in Roanoke, Virginia. Throughout the past few years, it would be sold to Virginia Scrap and Iron and Metal Company scrapyard, to the Illinois Railroad Museum, and even to the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad. But in 1991, it was sold to the Strasburg Railroad for over $100,000 and was restored to operational condition in November 6 of 1993.
$100,000.
$100,000.
100,000. Damn.
Yeah,
That's a bargain.
Certain decapod.
But
But
anyway,
anyway,
yeah.
but during 470's life at Strasburg, it got to be part of a movie, which of course I liked, which was Thomas and the Magic Railroad, where it would play as the Rainbow Sun and would travel all the way out to Harrisburg to be used for the movie, which I think was amazing that they transported 475 all the way out to Harrisburg Transportation Center.
And I'm pretty sure that's the only time that a 480 Mastodon operated on the main line during the preservation era. At least until, well, you know.
Or at least in the United States. Again.
Yes.
Yes, again, in the United States. Obviously, there are other Mastodons in other countries, but...
yeah, there are actually quite a few European Mastodons. But when it comes to the United States, again, the 475 is basically the only one that really springs to mind.
Yeah.
And therefore, some may say that it is overrated.
But
And not only that, but of course, like, we can't forget about the 2914, which is actually from the Southern Pacific. It's the only Mastodon in the States that's preserved that ain't from the NNW.
Yeah, true. But like I was about to say, during its life at Strasburg, it would also cosplay as its lost mate from the Norfolk Western Mastodon, number 382, also known as Virginian Creeper.
Although I think if I ever got my hands on 433, I'd probably name it Little Simba.
Oh yeah, true.
Because Stephen likes the Lion King, and he thinks that Simba as a kid was actually more mature than when he grew up.
True.
More likable, I should say.
Yeah. But
the point, adult Simba is boring, and his performance in The Lion King 2 was a little bit frustrating.
Yeah, but either way, today 475 is still around today at Strasburg Railroad, operating passenger excursions, and today she's currently in her new look, which has a centered headlight compared to her original look, which had a certain.
The headlight was shelved on
the headlight shelf looks a little bit awkward in my eyes. It just, really.
It wasn't high enough.
Yeah, you got a point. What else? What was I gonna say? I keep forgetting what I'm gonna say. Shit. But yeah, and the 433, when I finally get my hands on it, I'll give it a visored headlight and a brass eagle on top, and it's obviously going to be a centered headlight.
But anyway, that's the history of 475. Let's move on to number 13.
Oh boy.
The next.
Well, Steven, you're going to get pissed at this one. Number 13. Grand Trunk Western Mikado number 4070.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really pissed at that one. I don't hate the locomotive that much. It's just kind of, I'll say it is kind of overrated when it comes to its, everybody talking about it on retired Steam Star lists or something like that.
Exactly.
Another Mikado that I'm not going to mention because it might be on the list. But anyway, I actually don't know much about the engine.
Same.
Who wants to tell the story?
The only thing I know about the locomotive is that it was built in the 1920s, and it was built for freight service, and that it was bought by who was it? It was also featured in the movie The National, and it also did a doubleheader with 2102, and is currently at the the Midwest Railroad Preservation Society, which ironically has my favorite steam locomotive next door to it. Anyway. But that's really all we know about 4070. Number 12, which I'm going to go solo on.
Well, I know a little. I do remember.
It was originally numbered as 3734, wasn't it?
Yeah, 3734. That was its old number. And I think it was built in, 1918 or something? And it was a heavy Mikado? USRA heavy Mikado, or am I wrong?
It was a USRA, I know that for sure.
Anyway, we don't care that much. Move on to the next engine.
Which I'm going solo on. Number 12.
Okay.
Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe, 3751.
Well, sweet Pacific Rim job.
Finally, one that I think is overrated.
Anyway, 3751 was...
Just mark this video as not made for kids because of that.
Don't worry, it's already marked as not for kids. Because I'm pretty sure I've done the picture. But anyway, 3751 is, well, known as currently the oldest preserved 484 in the States. Built in 1927 as a 484 passenger locomotive for the Santa Fe. Well, originally it was built with smaller drivers and, it was basically a little bit much shorter. Later during its career, it was given bigger drivers and a bigger capacity boiler. But, well, they were basically they were the Santa Fe's mixed traffic locomotives, basically. Until being retired in the 50s, 3751 was put on display in Colorado. No, not Colorado, California. But either way, the locomotive spent only 20 years on display. And, well, most of it had actually deteriorated into nothing. Until, it was pulled out of the park and restored to operation. And, well, for the next 40 years, was it 40? Yeah, 40 years. The locomotive was haul tons of excursions, including employee appreciation specials, a visit to the Grand Canyon Scenic Railroad, and what was the other one? I forgot.
Rail Fair 1999?
Yes.
Also, let's not forget that 3751 also met up with the Union Pacific Challenger.
Oh, yeah.
What was that?
And the most important note of all, the price for which the society that decided to refurbish the 3751 bought it from the city on which.
Yes. $1.
$1.
Yeah. And the thing is, that's actually how much money they spent buying the 2926 from the park. Only $1 too. Isn't that funny?
It's a real shame that I really wish I could buy a 433 for only $1.
I wish I could buy 769 for only $1, but guess what? That thing in the state it's in is $300,000.
I wish I could build a new locomotive for $1, but that's going to be a nightmare. Anyway, continue on.
Well, in 2015, it finally went on after 40 years of excursion. Well, it had gone through one overhaul before, but this one is a rather extensive overhaul for 3751, which, well, it's still going under the overhaul as of today. And, well, I think it actually might be back at service in 2022. And maybe might even meet up with a cousin locomotive, 2926. But anyway, we'll get on to that later. Oh boy, here comes number 11. And you all should have seen this one coming.
Is it Union Pacific 4014?
No, that's later on.
Oh dear.
Number 11. Lake Superior Ifming 34, also known as...
It's overrated as fuck because everybody starts hating on 1309 just because their precious colonies out of service.
Also known as
Western
Western
Maryland. I was
Maryland.
trying to say, that engine is better known today as Western Maryland 734.
But either way, this locomotive was built in 1924 by the Baldwin Locomotive Works for the Michigan for hauling iron ore in Michigan and Ishpeming Railroad. And well, numbered as 34. And to be honest, today it's actually one of the most powerful consolidations, in the world. One of them. And well, after its retirement in the 50s, it was sent to the Illinois Railroad Museum with a sister engine, number 35. But 34 didn't have to remain a display piece for too long. 34 was then bought by the Allegheny Central Railroad, which then rebranded themselves as the Western Maryland Scenic Railroad, rebranding themselves with their iconic steam locomotive, which would be 34. However, it was actually cosmetically altered to be an entirely different locomotive, which was a typical 1930s Western Maryland era H-class consolidation. That little whistle in the background. But either way, it spent roughly 20 years for the locomotive in service without an overhaul, basically running the locomotive into the ground. And recently, as of 2016, the locomotive had to go into its federal mandated inspection after a photo charter. And well, in
I refer to it as the 4254-day inspection.
But anyway, in 2014, Western Maryland Scenic acquired a 2662 Mallet, also known as Erectus Deletus for the Western Maryland Scenic lovers.
Because at the time, that new locomotive, CNO 1309, proved to be a bit of a meme that almost basically called the Western Maryland into bankruptcy.
Yeah, I mean, to say the least, because of 1309, because of 734, people are hating on the only 2662 Mallet articulated tender locomotive to operate in the preservation era like that.
About to, at least.
Well, about to anyway. They're hating on that engine just because it replaced a Connie. Isn't that stupid?
Granted, I prefer the 734 to the 1309,
but then again,
features, right?
Yeah. Just from the cosmetics, mechanically speaking, I can see why they did it, and again, since earlier this year, I can also see why they picked 1309 as opposed to the 2705, which is a 284 Berkshire, or Canal as the CNO called them. But granted, I still think the 1309 is ugly as fuck, but I'm not hating on it for potentially being a better performer once the overall is finally finished.
And about it, actually. To be honest, I praise the Western Maryland Scenic Railroad for restoring this locomotive. I would never disrespect the very thing that people take their time, money, and effort into to restore such a humongous locomotive. In fact, this is the largest steam locomotive that has ever been restored by a scenic railroad. And people don't take that into consideration. Isn't this amazing?
Again, the Connie is apparently their childhood. And apparently WMSR is apparently raping their precious childhoods.
They're bringing back 734 someday. And we've already gotten news about it. So stop being such a bitch about it.
Yes, please. Just stop.
Please. Please.
Just stop being such annoying ass.
If you beat 734 to death like this,
of the game in this case.
If you beat 734 to death like this, you're going to basically start hating the locomotive. So stop.
Or else.
I'll make you.
Or else we'll make that.
Yeah, we'll make it cold. We'll make him cold.
Okay, but
That's
anyway.
dark.
Oh boy. Number 10.
What?
Everyone should have seen this one coming. To be honest, this locomotive was actually at number 3, but I found engines that were a lot more highly rated. Number 10. Nickel Plate Road, number 587.
I couldn't agree more. Although if Joseph was in here, he'd probably rip us a new asshole.
To say the least. The same reason that this locomotive is on the list is the same reason 734 is on the list. Patience. 587 is getting its rebuild. And just because Asino Kana is a higher priority doesn't mean you have to start complaining about a Meccano that has been in longer service than it.
And not only that, but, the Kishko's got to, get Old Smoky to their shops.
Yeah, they recently purchased that engine too.
Who's this?
What is this?
Who's
Oh, Angel. Or shall we say
Spooter.
Spooter.
Hi, Spooter. Don't worry. As long as he doesn't speak during the stream, then he should be fine. But anyway, let's get back to the actual thing. Oh boy, he's actually gonna get mad at number 1. But either way, 587 was built. You know what, Mike? Would you like to take it?
Oh, Nickel Plate Road 587? Sure.
Yeah. I'm just gonna take a moment back here and just.
Right. Nickel Plate Road 587 was originally built for the Lake and Western Railroad and was originally numbered as 5,541 and was built by the
541.
Yes. It was built by the Baldwin Locomotive Works, and when the railroad was purchased by Nickel Plate Road in 1922, it was renumbered 587. After its retirement in 1955, it was donated to the city of Indianapolis and was put on display in Border River Park, Indianapolis, Indiana. And prior to being put on display, its tender was switched for another steam engine, which Nickel Plate Road number 639, because on the tender on 639 was in need of repair, and the original was in good condition. However, in 1983, a group of people called the Friends of the 587 decided to help bring the locomotive back to life. And by 1988, the 587 was restored on September of 1988. And throughout his career, he even participated in triple header and double headers with Northwest in 611, 1218, 765. And in 2000, it started its own movie, Old 587, The Great Robbery. But by 2003, the 587's operation came to a close, and now it's undergoing its FRA inspection. And of course, like we mentioned in one of our previous videos, it's been taking a long ass time.
Partly because the friggin' Illinois Transportation Museum went out of business.
Exactly.
They had to relocate to, I believe, Logansport, Indiana.
Yeah. But on June 28, 2018, the Kentucky Heritage Corporation made a deal with the Indiana Transportation Museum, relocated 587, and moved it out before the deadline. And as of now, it's stored at Raven, Kentucky, alongside Chesapeake, Ohio, 2716 at Kanawha, until the ITM gets enough funds. But like Tim said in the previous video, Kanawha goes first. Had one operating in years.
And if you don't let them go, you will be terminated. Anyway.
But also, oh fuck, it's Ravenna, not Raven. Ravenna. I thought you said Raven, Mike.
Oh,
anyway,
sorry.
what is next?
Okay. Number 9. Great Smoky Mountains Railroad, number 1702.
How is it overrated?
In my opinion, one of the two best looking S160s. So you are definitely treading on some very sensitive toes here.
Yeah.
I don't see how it's overrated. Like, it's kind of,
Maybe it's semi-obscure, actually.
Steven,
Please
and
elaborate
the
it.
guys, from the people that I know in the actual railroad community that aren't you guys, They foam over this engine, okay? They foam over it, like to the point where they wish.
I've seen this locomotive in real life. Like last year, I went rode behind the thing.
It's annoying. Like, even to the point where I just went off screen and got this. Anyway. It got to the point where I went off screen and got a Nerf shotgun.
Oh, I see it. Nerf gun and shotgun out.
And I also have this gun.
I'm watching the stream, and I'm seeing him pull out guns.
Oh my god, look at this face.
I'm not watching the stream. I don't even know what the hell's happening.
Andrew, we can't hear you on my side.
I can't hear you either.
Crap. Speaketh. One sec, let me just leave and rejoin.
He's getting loaded up for this.
Okay, I'm back.
There we go.
All right.
What was the problem?
I don't know.
Or what are you doing? I've seen the locomotive in person, so I don't think it's overrated.
To be honest,
Please tell us.
look, I know at least. Let's see.
The
40 people. 40 people.
40 people's clearly an exaggeration.
40? 40 people is an exaggeration.
Obviously.
Or is it that exact number of people that you know that like this locomotive a little bit too much?
You bet your ass. I go to a train show, you see, every year. And they talk about this locomotive non-stop.
I would just say, yeah, it's a very good looking S160.
Yes, I get.
Yes,
I get that it's it's the best looking S160 out of the bunch. But you don't have to make it like these guys that I know. They want to take every S160 model that they see and make it look like 1702, like every single one.
I personally would like to see somebody try to make one out of 610 at TBRM.
Or maybe.
To be honest, I think I'm gonna skip 1702 because I'm just gonna get mad talking about this one, like really mad.
Well, I guess maybe Steven has a little bit has some more knowledge about the history of this engine.
Okay.
So just saying.
1702 was built in 1942 by the, in my opinion, overrated Baldwin Locomotive Works. It was I believe it actually had buffers and all that stuff when it was first built. It looked more like, I believe 5197 is its number. It looked a little bit more like that.
Because it was one of the S160 that, because it was initially built for overseas use?
Yes, but it never went overseas. I'm not sure what it did during its revenue career, like during that time, but I know for a fact it was sold to the Reeder Railroad in Arkansas. I'm not sure. I don't know if it was a tourist line or a revenue freight service line or what, but its running mate, I believe, was a Prairie number 11, which also eventually saw steam excursion used in the southeast. But the Reeder Railroad was somewhere in Arkansas, I believe. I believe in the late 80s, it was sold to the Great Smoky Mountains Railroad and got quite the cosmetic overhaul, I must say. In the early to mid 90s was when it was returned to service. It was honestly, I dare say, it looked a little bit like I guess a miniature version of 2716 with the brass eagle on top of the headlight, the silver smoke box, all these fancy fangled features and all that. It operated there. I mean, it occasionally got some cosmetic changes here and there, and in 04, it was taken out of service, I guess, for the canned Canuck inspections. But, in 2014, they began rebuilding the locomotive once again, and then it was returned to service once again in 2016. And in 2019, I got to ride behind the locomotive.
To be honest, you guys are right. It really should not be on this list. But I have faced so many foamers of this engine in particular that I just...
It drives you nuts, doesn't it?
Yes!
Also, the livery that 1702 was in, like, shortly before it was taken out of service in 2004, I don't like that livery because it's so bland looking. The livery that it currently has is somewhat better because the fact that it's a little bit more fancy, but it's not like, when it was first restored by GSMR.
That's where they got it. And
One thing is, they actually, like, on the GSMR website, they have a picture of 1702. It's actually an old picture of it, like, from the 90s or something. I guess, the Great Smoky Mountains Railroad, doesn't want to update their pictures or something like that.
Okay. I'm okay now. Let's go on to number 8.
Oh, wait. I actually remember something that I wanted to say regarding the S-160s as a whole.
Okay.
One thing that I would like to see in terms of, it doesn't necessarily involve the 1702, but rather mainly one of the S-160s that's preserved in the United Kingdom, number 2253, Omaha. Now that's basically, somewhat recently that's been painted red, though it still looks like a traditional S-160 with the single air compressor off-centered on the front of the smoke box. But because it's red, what I would really love to see is maybe one day, when it has to go through an overhaul again, maybe they can make it look more like a London, Midland, and Scottish locomotive. I
got an idea here.
And take inspiration from the Tennessee Valley 610, remove the air compressor from the smoke box, and mount it within the left-hand walkway. That way you have room to mount a somewhat bigger smoke box door in the middle with a dart, and maybe add a flared smokestack or chimney to it. Just make it look like how an S-160 would have looked like if someone like Stanier got his hands on it.
So let me see here. What was I going to talk about again? I have an idea. How about, like, the Grand Gathering? It's all the S-160s that survive today. That would actually be really difficult to do because you'd have to have...
that would be...
How many are there that survive?
There are 25 survivors, but I think it would be fairly easy. Don't quote me on this, but it might be somewhat easier to actually get all 8 of the preserved ones in the United Kingdom together. Just those 8.
How about all the ones in the States?
I don't know how many there are in the States, but let's continue.
There are at least 2, of course. Well, it would be a foam fest if all of them that survived met up. Of course, all the operational ones would pull the excursions.
All right, guys, are we ready for number 8?
Okay, we'll go to number 8, whatever it is. It's Burger King number foot lettuce, isn't it?
But in all seriousness, my goodness, what the fuck is it?
Jim, you were waiting for this locomotive on the list, so just say it.
Hold on. I don't have my gun yet.
Wait.
You're what?
I think because I saw you pull your guns out.
I didn't but I'm ready. What's number 8?
Union Pacific.
Union Pacific 2014?
Yep.
It is one that is mind-afraid, but I dare say the big boys are the most overrated class of steam engines ever preserved in America.
Careful there, Stephen. You're treading on some very sensitive toes. Well, let me put it this way, Andrew. At the very least, you didn't pick my personal favorite boy.
That engine's not on the list.
Somewhat off the hook, and
that engine's not on the list because it's, not talked about anymore, sadly.
I kind of beg to differ, but okay. 2014. Well, basically, it's just I can kind of see why people would say it's overrated.
It's a former magnet because it's the largest operating steam engine in the world.
I'm streaming.
Yeah. It was built in 1941. It pulled freight. That's about it for its revenue career. Then it sat in California for many years.
Many?
22. And Union Pacific eventually reacquired the locomotive because the folks at the Real Giant Train Museum in Pomona, California, took very good mechanical care of the locomotive. Little bits of maintenance, checking the oil and the bearings, maybe refilling it, moving it back and forward a little bit, at least once a year if they had the chance. Just to preserve it as best as they could. And, it paid off, and UP reacquired the locomotive in July of 2013 with the bold objective of refurbishing it to working order and converting it to burn oil instead of coal, just in time for the 150th anniversary of the Golden Spike celebrations in Utah in 2019. Mission succeeded. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of baggage with it because people are kind of overinflating by saying that the 4014 is now the most famous steam locomotive in the world.
No, it is not.
Even I disagree with that. Disagree with that.
Yes, it's the largest, but it's not the most famous.
I mean, Flying Scotsman is the most famous because, yeah, sure, 4014 can probably be the most famous in America, but Scotsman had quite a few special achievements under her belt when it comes to worldwide preservation.
Under her belt? It's Scots man, not Scots woman.
It's belt then, okay.
Scotsman,
yeah.
You know what, Stephen?
The Scotsman operated in the friggin' United States and in Australia. Good luck getting the big boy to fit onto Australian rails and even British rails. So, yes, rest in peace, loaded. Rest in peace, British tracks. But, yeah. 4014 did nothing in the preservation era. It was only when the engine was finally refurbished that it really started to get into its game. And as an excursion locomotive, I hate to say it, but the King of Steam is a novice. Even if it hasn't even earned it better.
Heck, even some other big boys were used for things like 4019 for having smoke deflectors, 4005 to be converted to burn oil.
That was more so, the result of bad times in the economy.
No, but the engine hasn't even been able to operate this year because of the virus.
Yeah.
I can't wait till these damn regulations can finally end.
And I hope 4014 will operate in 2021.
Well, I guess we just have to wait for the damn virus to finally vanish from this planet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I thought we're going to get another lockdown or something like that.
All right.
But because this was nowhere near as bad as, say, the Spanish flu, which lasted 2 years and killed 50 million people. But that's off topic.
Okay.
Needless to say, even as a Union Pacific fan, I will agree. 4014 is quite a bit overrated.
But anyway, now, before I talk about number 7, Steven, I swear to God, if you mention that pedophile, you see this? You see this right here?
Oh God, I know what it is.
Is it the general? Is it the general?
Yes, it's the general!
Don't worry, I'm not going to mention him.
Good. Anyway.
But yeah, it is a historically significant locomotive. It did get to do more shit in the preservation era than 4014 has already.
But somehow, even my... Just do it. Just talk about it. Just talk about it, okay?
At least the General is the oldest locomotive on the list. It was built in December of 1855. It was just a mixed traffic locomotive. It was actually involved in the Great Locomotive Chase of 1862, which was actually its flagship. And there was also the Texas, another locomotive from the Western and Atlantic, which was the railway that the General and the Texas ran on. Basically, the Union troops basically stole the General, and Confederate troops chased after them in Texas, and eventually they the general lost. Well, it was running low on fuel, and they eventually had to abandon the locomotive. Now the locomotive actually survived all of that, even survived being it even survived being rammed into a boxcar of ammunition. It actually was rebuilt after the war and lasted as late as 1891. And then the Nashville, Chattanooga, and St. Louis, who was the successors of the Western Mid-Atlantic, purchased. I guess they acquired the General. They, overhauled it for some sort of special event. It was only brought out during special events after its retirement. It showed up for, I believe, the Fair of the Iron Horse, along with King George V, and it also, I believe, it went to the 1939 New York World's Fair. I think, I don't know, but then the L&N came along in the 60s or something like that, and they, acquired the Nashville, Chattanooga, and St. Louis, and then they basically ran they rebuilt the General once again. They used this big-ass combine car, which just so happened to be longer than the locomotive itself, on a tour of at least the eastern half of the country. And the engine was converted to oil firing, so it could actually traverse all that trackage. And they gave it more modern, air brakes and all that stuff. Basically, more up to, making it more up to date. The engine, I believe it showed up for the 64 in New York World's Fair as well. Nowadays, the General is on display at the in Kennesaw, Georgia, Civil War Locomotive Museum, whatever the hell it's called. For all I know, you could probably get in the cab and blow the not blow the whistle, but ring the bell. You could probably do that if you wanted or something like that. But yeah, so that's basically the story of the General. And Andrew?
Let me actually check the stream here. That is a beautiful wall. He hasn't returned yet.
Oh, so he's gone?
Hi!
Where the hell did you go?
Oh,
My mom told me to go take out the trash.
Delay.
Oh, of course. Parents, they just interrupt you whenever you're trying to do shit. They just will never shut up, and they basically just want to fucking, be glued to you all the time,
Okay.
Parents these days.
Anyway.
By the way, Andrew, that's a sweet ass Santa Fe shirt.
Thanks.
What's next?
Anyway, number 6, Southern 4501.
Oh! No,
I did make a. It is the most popular engine at TVRM. And I don't know right now, but you get the point right there. Hello?
I'm here. I'm still here. I'm just past. Okay. Anyway, the reason it's on this list is because so many people. It's the same reason that 1702 was on this list. Except, Southern 45 is even more a lot more overrated than. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Who's got the history?
I do.
I don't.
Well,
I only know one thing about it that I mentioned last time, I think.
I know a little bit about the locomotive because I watched that 4501 documentary, and then there was one.
right. Well, I can tell the history of Southern 4501.
Okay.
And before anybody asks, 4501 wasn't built for the Southern Railway in the United Kingdom. We're talking about the Southern Railway in the United States.
Thanks, Captain Obvious. I mean, I don't even think the British Southern Railway even purchased Mikado.
No.
But anyway,
Mikados that I can think of were on the LNER, I think. Maybe there were some other Mikados in the UK on there. But, you know, fucking giant.
GWR 7200, but those were tank engines. Anyway, let's talk about the friggin' 4501. Now,
The 74501 was built in October 1911 by Baldwin Locomotive Works as the first of its railways to be built for the Southern Railway. During its time, it would operate trains on Southern system from Tennessee, Virginia, Kentucky, and Indiana. In 1948 of October, the Kentucky and Tennessee Railway acquired the locomotive and renumbered it to 12. By June of 1964, the 4501 was, the 4501 was retired.
Moved from all the way back to like Chattanooga or something like that, like with like 3 passenger cars. Because again, I heard that on the documentary. It's all pictures of it.
I think so. But anyway, in June of 1964, after running to Chattanooga from P&T, an initial restoration was done by the Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum to be used for the Southern Railway steam program. The Southern 4501 was, of course, finished after its restoration was completed and launched its public run between Chattanooga and Richmond, Virginia. Throughout the years, 4501 would be used to run on several excursion trips on the Illinois Central, Chicago Northwestern, etc. And of course, one of my favorite paint schemes on 4501 is, of course, the beautiful green paint livery.
Crescent green.
Yes. And she got to even double head with 611 and 1218, similar to how 587 triple headed with them. And of course, during its time, it was repainted into Southern black.
In the mid 90s was when it was painted back to black.
Yes, but
back to black. And 4501 was taken out of service in like 98. And, you know, it like sat on display for a while. Then it was taken back in like 2011. They started another rebuild, and then it came back in black again. And then in 2000, got to participate in the steam program again.
Yes, it is. And not only that, but during its rebuild, it would actually have a replica of a Ward-15 SA type P water heater from, yes, you won't believe this, a Chinese railway QJ. Yes, a QJ locomotive using a feed water heater on a Southern Mikado. And in September of 2019, 4501 was dressed up as Louisville Nashville J3 number 1593.
It's Louisville and Nashville.
Louisville, yes. But today, Southern 4501 still continues to pull passenger trains under its black livery. But I hope sometime next year, I want to see 4501 back in her beautiful green paint livery, because 6-3 should definitely keep the black paint livery instead of 4501.
They probably put in the black livery just because, you know, they thought the green livery killed the heritage, even though I feel like, you know, it isn't killing the heritage, because now it's like a nostalgic paint scheme for it.
True.
Anyway,
still, 4501 is best in green paint livery. Fight me.
now for the top 5, which are definitely overrated.
Does one of them feature one of my favorite Strasbourg engines, or no?
There's no more Strasbourg engines on this list.
Does it feature a particular northern?
There's a couple of Northerns.
Does one of them have one of Christopher Colback's favorite northern?
I won't mention that, but anyway.
Of course, well, I can guarantee there's probably going to be a Berkshire on the list.
But anyway, number 5. Norfolk and Western Class J, number 611.
Yeah, I don't think it's overrated, kind of, but not like it's kind of moderately overrated to me. I mean, I have seen the locomotive in person twice in a row, under steam at least. I watched it. I saw it once during its return to steam in 2015 when it returned to Roanoke, and I also saw it at Strasbourg, of course.
Yeah, but I got to see. But can I do the history of 611?
Yes! Floof the hair! For power!
Yes, but like I mentioned before, when we talked about the 475, the Norfolk Western Class J 484 is, of course, one of the third build of the Class J series. But 611 here was built in the number 611 was built in May of 1950 at the Roanoke shops.
1950. Wow.
Yeah, and of
It's,
course,
it's arguably the most modern locomotive thus far on the list.
yes, and of course it would be used to pull the Norfolk Western's prominent passenger trains such as the Powhatan Arrow, the Pocahontas, and the Cavalier between Norfolk, Virginia and Cincinnati, Ohio. By 1959 of October, it would be used for a farewell to steam excursion and would be retired from the railroad. And of course,
we're going to hold a farewell to steam excursion?
yes, it did.
Oh.
Yes, it did, because he usually mentioned 2174 that usually pulled the steam excursions.
Well, I do know that it was considered for the Freedom Train by Ross.
Yes. But
they didn't mention it in the Ross Rowland Giant of Steam DVD, which is a documentary about Ross Rowland, which includes interviews with Ross Rowland.
yes, but in the early 1980s, Robert Claytor, the president of Norfolk Western, had his eye on 611, with his brother, W. Grandma Claytor, wanting to use 611 on their steam program. So in August of 1982, the 611 was brought back into restoration and was restored to operate, replacing, of course, a certain Kanawha that was used for the Southern Steam program, which we all know.
Ended up doing that because of the fact that it was not in good mechanical shape.
Exactly. And 611 would operate many passenger excursions on Norfolk Southern alongside her sister 1218, Nickel Plate Road 587, 74501, and even Savannah and Atlanta 750 and Nickel Plate Road 765. Sadly, though, the 611 would operate on a Norfolk Southern steam excursion until December 3rd of 1994.
It was put on display and all that stuff back in that point, but 611 was returned to service in 2015. I actually saw it when it was coming home to Roanoke that day.
Yes.
In 2015, and of course, it occasionally visits the North Carolina Transportation Museum and operates little things here and there.
Yes. But in fall of 2019, the 611 would visit the Strasburg Railroad to reunite with the 475 and would even get to operate passenger excursions alongside Great Western Railway number 90 and, of course, my favorite tank engine, Brooklyn Eastern District of a.k.a. Thomas. And I got to see 611 3 times at Strasburg in October. One time when I rode the train with my dad. One time I went to go see 611 and 475. And of course, when I went to go see Thomas and Mavis for the Halloween Day Our Tops event.
I like that you make this with side plates, though, and cow catchers and side plates. That's what they should do. Make fake cow catchers and side plates. Make it a little bit more like Maven.
Yeah, but today, 611 is still currently at the North Carolina Transportation Museum because of the COVID-19 situation. But hopefully...
Well, it did go under steam like one weekend there. It was stored there, but they did stoke it up again. Back in September, in-cab experiences. Because I saw a Stevie Weavy BB video.
Yeah.
Huh?
But today, 611 is still one of my favorite 484 Northerns of all time.
In fact, he's actually building it for Christmas in Garrisburg.
Yes. And of course, I really love 611 a lot. And I hope it visits Pennsylvania again sometime in the future. Hopefully visiting Steamtown and possibly the Reading and Norfolk. I would definitely love to see that.
One sec, I'll be right back.
Okay. Well, while at it, let's talk about an honorable mention, shall we?
No.
Yeah.
Wait, wasn't it number... What number are we on? Aren't we on number 5?
Yep.
Number 4. Well, let's see until, when we get to number 1, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, let's see. What do you guys think number 4 is on the list?
Probably either Berkshire or a Northern.
Yeah. Well, I'm back, so I guess I'll tell you guys number 4.
Oh, that was quick.
Well, oh boy, Steven, you're gonna time to let out all your anger. Number
Okay.
4, Nickel Plate Road, number 765.
Yes, this is the most overrated of the books that is fucking operational in the preservation of the fucking planet and the
And it's one of my favorite books of all time.
Oh, fucking what? What? I'm trying to act and be funny and act crazy for funniness.
What's the problem? I'm pumped.
But yes, it is the most overrated Burke. Okay, well, besides maybe like 1225.
But anyway,
to the history.
Are you interested in some French fries?
right. History of 765.
Waffle?
760.
It was built
Anthony,
in
I'm live.
1944, from what I remember,
I'm live
by
streaming.
Lima. And they used the locomotive, I believe, predominantly in freight service until last running it in 1958. And then it was moved in 1963 to I think to Lawton Park, if I remember, in downtown Fort Wayne, Indiana. Then in 1972, 4 gentlemen, Glenn Brendel, Wayne York, Walter Sussmanhausen, and John Eichmann, became the first 4 members of the Fort Wayne Railroad Historical Society, which was a brand new organization dedicated to finding a new home for the locomotive, and maybe, just maybe, refurbishing it and restoring it to working order, which they did, starting in 1975. I believe in October of that year. And then they finished in September of 1979. And by that time, they also the initial refurbishment of the 765 is also a little bit of a record breaker for the fact that it was the largest steam locomotive ever refurbished outdoors without conventional shop facilities.
Yes, and of course, during its time, it got the cosplay as a Sino Kanawa.
That didn't happen until 1993, but yeah.
Yeah, but that year was the year that, whatever. That was the year that it also got taken out of service, and then they acquired the Fort Wayne Railroad. Actually, initially wanted the 2716 as a running mate for the engine, but that failed miserably. It only operated for like a couple of years, and then, they got the 765 up and running again in like the mid-2000s or something like that, and basically got a quote-unquote like new locomotive out of it, basically. And the thing's been operating since. And, I like it better with a Wars Light.
Yeah, but
Okay.
fun fact for y'all, you do actually know that back in when 765 was retired, it was cosplayed as 767.
Yes.
Was that bridge thing that it, like, the grand opening?
Yeah, it was. The city initially wanted number 767 because it participated in the opening of a railroad viaduct as part of the Elevate the Nickel Plate project. But unfortunately, by the time that it was retired, the 767 was in significantly worse mechanical condition than the 765. So true 767 was broken up for scrap. And so the Nickel Plate gave Fort Wayne the 765, disguised as the 767. So it's basically somewhat of a friggin'
Imposter.
that the engine can never really escape from.
But yeah, the thing is also the engine it was eventually like cosmetically disguised as 767 briefly for maybe a few excursions. I don't know if it was during Steam in the Valley or what, but
It was for Steam in the Valley.
Well, guys, are you ready for number 3?
Yes.
What is number 3?
It's landed number 3 on a couple of other lists. And it doesn't matter what list it was on, it landed number 3 for some reason. Number 3. Pennsylvania Railroad number 1361.
Overrated as shit!
Yes.
I knew you were gonna...
And the feel of that thing.
Probably because it's a Pennsy locomotive that operated in the preservation era, and the one that does currently, and that's the Pennsy 643, which doesn't have a Bel-Air firebox, though.
My face distorted from how angry I got. It was like a... I can't recreate it again. No. But
I'm not like overly obsessed with the 1361 or like thinking it's really overrated or underrated.
But to say the least, 1361 is the most overrated Pacific to operate in the U.S., specifically for the fact it's the only, it's the state locomotive of Pennsylvania. It's the only K4 Pacific to operate in the preservation era, and because of how short its fucking career was. But people don't seem to understand it was a botch job.
It's unlike a 2-year botch job or only 3 years. That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
I'm okay now. Anyway, on to the history. The Pennsylvania K4 Pacific was built for high-speed passenger and mail service. And it, Pennsylvania 1361, along with all of its 200 other siblings, were retired. But sadly, only 2 sisters remained, those being 1361 and 3750. 1361 was put on display at the famed Horseshoe Curve. And though, in the 90s, or was it the 80s, it was brought out.
1880s.
It was brought out of its display area and restored to operational condition, yet only for 1 year of excursion, because of the botch job. And, to say the least, the main bearing and drive axle suffered a catastrophic failure, which put the locomotive out of service only after 1 year of excursion service. And then,
and if I'm not mistaken, it had a really rough life at Steamtown National Historic Site.
Yeah, we'll get to that. To say the least, after that, it was sent to Steamtown, as he said, and they tried, and I quote, tried to get the thing running again with over, what was it, $3 million, or was it $1.5 million that was donated to them to get this engine running again. But
the only thing that matters is that they ran out of money.
Yeah, they somehow ran out of money restoring the Pacific. I'm just really mad at Steamtown because of this specific engine. Because Steamtown, you haven't even earned your name anymore. You've become like Rail Town. That's it. All I see is rails and a bunch of rotting steam engines. That's all I see now.
How about Scrap Town?
Scrap Town, yeah. Welcome to Scrap Town National Historic Site.
Or Diesel Town. But to be fair, I've seen a couple of recent pictures today that are actually quite promising. But
anyway.
But they're not related to the 1361.
But either way, the 1361 was taken off of Steamtown property after they ran out of money trying to refurbish the damn Pacific.
And if I'm not mistaken, they actually stored the boiler at the soon-to-be-returning East Broad Top.
And then they sent the rest of the parts to, the Railroad Museum of Pennsylvania. But after, I think it was 2010, or was it 2012? What time? Well, either way, 1361 was then brought back together with all of its parts to the newly built shed at, I forgot the museum.
The Railroad Memorial Museum?
Yeah, the Railroad Memorial Museum in Pennsylvania. And, they have plans to completely restore the locomotive to operation right this time. With only a dedicated team of 9 people now, the locomotive is predicted to be hopefully restored, or maybe restored, in the midst of 2030. And an estimated cost of $750,000. All that's really left is actually boiler and firebox work, and there's a pretty high chance we'll actually get to see the locomotive running again. But, as I said, even me, as a Pennsylvania fan, I hates the fact that this engine gets so much credit, even though there are so much better Pennsylvania locomotives that can operate in the preservation era. And you know what's even more pathetic?
There were two other locomotives. I hate to say it again, but there were two other locomotives that operated that were from the Pennsy.
Yeah, and we talked about those last time. Those being 7002, quote 7002, and 1223.
I prefer 1223 because I like American type, and it's an American type. It ain't like overly classy like 1800s design.
To be honest, I actually do like 1223. But either way, what's even more pathetic is that nowadays the only Pennsylvania locomotive operating in the States is an 060 yard switcher.
Could you calm down?
And it shares its road number with a 210-4 Texas type.
But to be fair, I think
643.
I think 643 is a little bit underrated. Hold on, I'll be right back. I gotta go take a piss.
Okay, you go take that piss myself.
Okay, and now number 2 is the one I want to go solo on.
What is it?
I'm gonna wait for Steven.
No, wait till I'm done in the bathroom.
Yeah, he needs to piss.
It's quick.
He needs to take a piss.
Just like we gotta take the piss out of something.
Yeah. After this, I'm gonna go find a hot topic, and guess what I'm gonna do?
You're gonna piss all over it.
I got to make an announcement.
I'm gonna pee in a hot topic.
Well, to be fair, I really do like the K4 1351, but hopefully when it's restored, I hope it is Strasbourg.
To be honest, why doesn't... I mean, barely any people give any affection to 3750. Look at the state it's in today. It at least deserves a cosmetic restoration.
I mean, heck, they even did a good cosmetic restoration job on Pennsylvania Railroad E6 442 Atlantic number 460.
I'm gonna explode by the end of this.
Why?
I don't know.
What?
All right, finally I'm back. Now we can go on to number 2.
By the way, Andrew, I think I have the perfect clip for your explosion.
Is it the thing for your top 10 least favorite steam locomotives?
No, it's just two powerful words together. Hold on. Oh fuck. Hold on.
And guys, for number 1, I want all of you to talk about this.
Yes, I actually thought it was going to be that. I swear it was 2 words, and the thing that went through my mind was oral cum shot.
Okay.
I don't know what's worse, oral cum shot or anal cum shot. What is worse, oral or anal?
Yes, my shotgun. Anyway, now number 2, and I'm warning guys, I'm gonna get really fed up with this one. Number 2.
This is gonna be good.
Reading 2101, also known as American Freedom Train number 1.
Yeah, I don't know. My enthusiasm isn't really that high for getting angry at that one.
I know yours is, but I'm a huge Reading T1 fan, and that's why this one's on the list.
Is it because of its Freedom Train and chassis steam special thing with Ross?
The liveries? No, I couldn't give 2 shits about the liveries. Those look nice.
Is it because of the baggage of people wanting to restore the engine?
Yes!
Wait, people actually Jesus, restore the engine?
Yes!
Andrew, you want to know something truly tragic?
What?
I used to be one of them.
You know what?
I
Okay.
I see you were going to shoot yourself.
The gun fired. The gun fired as soon as I pulled it out of my mouth. Okay. I'm okay. Anyway, on to the story. Reading Reading 2101 is one of 30 484s built by the Reading
It's one of the
Railroad, which, well, it was originally built as an I-10A, which is a consolidation, a firebox that is wider than wide Putin on a Monday. But anyway, the Reading was looking for bigger and heavier locomotives, and so they took 30 of their I-10As and rebuilt them as 484 Northerns, creating us the T1s we know today. And then, well, they were mainly built for freight service and sometimes passenger service. But then after Reading was starting to retire the steam engines, people started becoming fascinated by steam engines, and so they opened the famous Iron Horse Rambles. But 21 with four locomotives being preserved. Those being 2100, my favorite, 2101, 2102, and 2124. However, the 2101 was the only one that was not to operate.
It didn't run because it was used as a standby locomotive.
If you look in the stream, you should have seen exactly what was going on, because I said 2100 and like this is 2100, this is 2102, this is 2124, and I'm going to take the ones that operated.
Okay.
It's the middle finger. But anyway.
Oh, yeah, I get you.
The 2101 was used as a parts donor locomotive for the whole thing. Well, sort of, either that or a standby locomotive. And, well, after the Iron Horse Rambles ended, 2100 and 2101 were both sold to equipment and supplies.
Final scrapyard in Baltimore, Maryland.
Yes.
Where they were held for preservation.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Anonymous Scrapyard owner.
Now to the actual thing. So, Ross Rowland was looking for locomotives for his American Freedom Train, which we said earlier, 611 was up for debate. But they instead went with one of the Reading T1s, which, well, he bought both 2100 and 2101, where 2100 was sadly used as a parts donor locomotive, and 2101 was restored to operation in less than 30 days.
Chicago, in time or anything like that for the train. So he decided, so Ross needed to get another locomotive, another steam engine, as opposed to getting a diesel to pull the train. And he
bought both 2101 and 2100 for his American Freedom Train project, and used 2100 as a parts donor locomotive, bringing 2101 back to life in less than 30 days. Deathly Hallows!
I can barely even hear you.
What are you talking about?
Andrew, are you okay?
Andrew! Earth to Andrew!
Screw it! Anyway, after the American Freedom Train with 2101, he decided to use the locomotive for the Chessie Scene Special, which celebrated the 150th anniversary.
First, like from the Ross Rowland video.
Which happened to the 150th anniversary of the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad, which for some reason they painted it in a Chessie Special instead of a Baltimore and Ohio. So it.
Well, it was in the Chessie. It was owned by the Chessie system, I guess. I don't know. I mean, honestly, I think that it could have looked really good as a B&O locomotive. I think the front end looked a little bit like one of the T3 Northerns. Hold on, let me get a clip of Ross explaining his thoughts on the front end of 2102 from Ross Rowland Giant of Steve. Hold on.
All right, can I continue though?
Listen.
The B&O's birthday for the general
Coming
public,
up.
not outside the whole rail. And Franklin Carr, then the Chessie System public relations head in Cleveland, and his people, along with Bob Lorenz, came up with the paint scheme, both the color scheme and the logos.
Here's the fun.
I think on balance, as much a departure from tradition as it was, I think it was very effective. It did a great job.
All right, but let's
Unusual as it was, I think
because it's going to say his thoughts on the. Listen.
How about that new front end look? When we redid the T1 in Birmingham, Alabama, for the second leg of the American Freedom Train, personally, I I always thought the T1s in their original Reading garb were rather plain Jane looking. And so it's my fault, or credit, as you will, for having moved the headlight and adding the eagle and the number boards and the flat light and all that.
And now everybody's laughing at that. Yay! I hate this computer so much. I hate this laptop so much. Okay, yes. Now listen.
But since it was my engine, that was the opinion that counted.
There.
Okay.
Of course, we couldn't have went through that without a fucking glitchy thing, because, you know, that computer's a piece of shit. That was like a year ago. Next. Relatively new computer. I don't know. But you get the point. You know, Ross thought that the, 2101 looked plain as a Reading locomotive, so he just decided to cosmetically alter it a little bit.
Okay.
Same with me in 433. Like, I think the M classes are a little bit plain looking as their, normal N&W. In their normal N&W liveries, they look plain.
Can I continue now?
Yes, you can continue now. What were you going to say?
I'm going to kill myself to death because of the English 100. But anyway, after the Chessie Steve special, it was finally stored in a roundhouse in Civic. And then, well, unfortunately, because of a couple of problems, the roundhouse caught fire and crippling the locomotive beyond repair, and then it was finally donated to the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad Museum, where it was cosmetically restored as American Freedom Train number 1, and now resides over there today in barely pieces and is still trying to decay.
Are you trying to overact for the sake of comedy? Because, Andrew, that's actually kind of cringe, bro.
Yeah, this is cringe if he's overacting for comedy. I think that it's kind of funny.
No, this is
Or
what I think his
it
reaction
might actually be very bad for your health.
Yeah, this is his reaction right here. Hold on.
Also, just in case the roundhouse was ever set on fire because of arson, Sheriff Steve Rambo caught the culprit.
Suspect is in custody. Call the prison and let him know he's coming home. Over.
I don't think it was arson. I think it was natural causes, a.k.a. lightning.
Or
Oh my
faulty
God.
electronics.
I have never spoken that fast in my entire life.
Well, now you have.
Never try it again.
Okay.
Now that we talked about 2101, honorable mentions?
Yeah, honorable mentions.
I'll proceed with the one that we should have talked about, which is Sierra Railway number 3.
Fuck that 10-wheeler to the ground.
Yes, but for those who don't know,
Also, special fuck you to Gmod and Steam user Cole Klink, who is a guy who has a very unhealthy obsession with that engine. And yet, he can't even pronounce the name Sierra properly.
Sierra, isn't it?
He always pronounces it as Tahira.
As I was saying, where is it?
Correctly? Grow up.
And also, I believe that, I know I hate to mention this one guy again, but on one of Mr. Acrazy's Q&A videos, somebody asked him what his opinion was on Sierra number 3, and he was like, cool train. He didn't even call it a steam locomotive, he just called it a train.
wow.
But that's because that kid isn't even into locomotives.
Yeah.
He's trying to be hip and trendy. And
Yes.
fails at it, so that's double.
Yeah. But for those who don't know, Sierra number 3 is a 460 10-wheeler that was also known as a movie star locomotive that starred in so many movies, including Back to the Future Part 3, and even appeared in TV shows such as Petticoat Junction.
When it comes to 460 that were movie stars, for me, there's only one proper one. GWR 5972, Bolton Hall. Or Castle.
Yes.
The red hole that was running with the castle's name and that was immortalized because of Harry Potter.
And, even though, the locomotive only had like 2 cylinders and it had a castle name, and the castles had 4 cylinders.
Yeah, but you get the idea.
Also,
He's made the locomotive famous.
I got another honorable mention.
What is it?
Pure Marquette number 1225.
Obviously, because that's the way things happen on the Polar Express.
When we get there, we'll skink bang!
Movie stores
It's all right, we're the bang, bang, bang.
Number 3, I'm not talking about that shit.
Anyway.
Let's see. How about Brooklyn Eastern District Terminal 15? Is he overrated?
I think it would be kind of overrated, yes, because of the whole Thomas shenanigans.
So it's overrated for the wrong reason.
Or, there might be people who don't like it for some reason because it's not an E2.
Moving as an E2. I don't know if they really were lackluster machines or not, but like
E2 are pretty damn lackluster.
Yeah.
They were just fortunate because of bad circumstances. Bad for the company, but good for the locomotive survival. But anyway.
Let's see.
Gotta be a moron to try and rebuild an E2.
What about Great Western number 90?
Overrated.
Oh, definitely.
Kind of, but I kind of like it because of the fact that it saved other locomotives from a roundhouse fire. I consider it the lawful good of the steam stars.
Yes.
How about... I'm not going to put 1218. I'm not going to say 1218. It's not overrated.
Well, actually, I think we should. I personally 1218 is overrated because of the fact that it posed. Well, it usually lands number 1 on people's top
excursion locomotive.
But of course, we all know what the number is for my list.
Number 2.
Yeah, just for those who haven't seen the list or whatever. Yeah.
All right. For number 1, somebody put on the.
I dare say it as an honorable mention, 3985, because since the big boy was refurbished, a lot of people are begging me, are asking me specifically, when are you going to refurbish it? And tragically, even though UP have announced that the Challenger is officially retired, there are a bunch of morons out there who think that the engine is actually in pretty good mechanical shape and is getting a rebuild.
No, it's shit, and like we said before, a botch job.
As a 3985 fan, the engine is done for in short term. Have fucking patience if it ever happens at all. Short term, no. Long term, maybe. Like 20 to 30 years from now. You're welcome.
By the way, somebody put on Spinning Monkeys for the next one.
Next.
Is it? Oh, is it Chris's favorite locomotive?
Well, I thought we were doing more honorable mentions. Let's talk about more. What's another overrated steam star?
Maybe 7630, I think.
Oh wait, I know. Maybe since they land on pretty much every retired steam star list ever, except for me and Jim's, 5629 and 5632.
I guess.
The deceased Burlington Route engines. Also, I guess to some mild degree in terms of being overrated, 614 is kind of there.
Yeah.
Not by much, I would say, but it's lightly overrated. Though it is a shame that it's kind of landlocked. And personally speaking, I don't like the Greenbrier Presidential Express livery.
What else? Could 2716 count? Because technically everyone puts it on their list. I think I was the first to put 2716 or 614 on there because it would be refurbished. Well, the 2716 would be refurbished, and no.
And when it comes to talking about their previous careers, as you say, it would be like beating a dead iron horse.
Yes, in the sense that it's not only beating a dead horse, but it's beating a dead iron horse because we're talking about an iron horse, but it's also a dead iron horse because it's not under steam.
Yeah. But Andrew, you were going to bring us to number 1?
Yeah. Did somebody put on spinning monkeys for this?
Oh,
Let me guess. Is it the favorite locomotive of the oldest of the cylinder cocks?
Yes.
is it Christopher Colfax's favorite engine?
That's what I was implying.
Yes.
Okay, one moment. Private Kovacs, stand ready for the airstrike. Over.
Roger that.
I was pretending that I was calling Christopher there.
Yeah, but if Christopher Colfax, I mean, I would imagine if we invited Christopher Colfax to join here and he would call up to hear his engine, I would love to hear him come.
Speaking of, I've noticed a lot of people copy what he says word for word in retired steamers lists or extinct steamers lists. I actually talked to him about it, and he apparently is a little bit annoyed by it as well.
Okay, but needless to say, I'm sorry, Andrew, if I'm going to introduce this one for you.
Just do it.
Number 1 on his top 15 overrated steam excursion locomotives is everybody's favorite sunny northern Southern Pacific number 4449.
Yes, my second favorite Northern.
See, everyone loves that engine. Everyone.
Well,
Andrew, calm your ass down.
good reason.
Andrew, calm your ass down, all right?
I guess it's with good reason, Andrew, because it is beautiful to look at.
Yes.
I prefer it in this AFT livery. I mean, the daylight livery is orange and stuff. Like the red
Oh,
light.
I love the daylight livery too.
The Freedom Train livery is the better livery out of the two.
Daylight livery is
I
better.
love it.
Like me.
How about BNSF Black?
I like that livery too. I like it too.
Anyway, Christopher, in case you're watching this, we are deeply sorry for doing this to you. And it seemed like Andrew was trying. Oh, I thought Andrew was trying to take a shower with this can of Coca-Cola. If it's Coca-Cola, that is. What the hell is it?
I'm trying to smash can on brain.
Andrew, would you stop acting over this?
It's Pepsi.
Oh, it's Pepsi. Oh, but it's Diet Pepsi. You pussy! I drink regular Pepsi.
Fitting how
It's what my grandma gets.
Fitting how Pepsi actually funded the Freedom Train. I think.
No wonder the colors are pink.
4449. It's one of the. It's part of the Southern Pacific's GS class, GS family of northern type locomotives.
I'm just gonna die over here in the corner. Don't mind me.
Built in 1941, and GS4s totaled, I want to say, 28 locomotives in total, numbered 4430 through 4457, as Andrew's trying to fall asleep.
I'm dead!
Cool. But yeah, being a big northern, the engine was designed primarily for the famous daylight passenger trains that the Southern Pacific had running all over their systems. And as such, the engines were, it was semi-streamlined and painted in orange and red to, match the daylight passenger carriages. Andrew, you're looking.
What?
It is just funny at this point. But of course, a minor setback, a little skirmish called the Second World War. So, almost immediately, the 4449 had its side skirts removed for the sake of somewhat better maintenance and lubrication, or just easier maintenance and lubrication and so forth of the running gear and valve gear, and it was painted all black. And I believe it even pulled some freight trains during its wartime careers. I want to say it was retired in 1957, and then it was sent to Oaks Park in Portland, Oregon, and it became the only surviving northern of the GS4 class. And well, in total, there are 2 preserved GS northerns. The other one being arguably the most underrated locomotive. One of the most underrated locomotives ever, GS6, number 4460. But needless to say, the 4449 you guessed it, it was selected for the American Freedom Train project in the early 1970s.
Of which it and 2101 get more of the attention than Texas and Pacific 610, mainly because 610 only pulled it in Texas, but I think it deserves just as much praise because it was the only Texas type operated in Preservation era, not counting 643.
Yeah, but Andrew seems to have vanished. That's amazing.
I'm still here.
Let me see.
I want to say the 4449 got refurbished, restored, and rebuilt, etc. in 1975. Now, apparently, before that, during the Storage at Oaks Park, there was someone who, I believe, lubricated the locomotive, like the bearings, etc. But unfortunately, that person died before the engine was moved out of the park. I want to say it was acquired by Doyle McCormick, or was it Ross Rowland first?
I believe it was Ross. I mean, obviously he was the one that. So yeah, they selected that engine for the Freedom Train probably because it was streamlined and powerful.
Yeah,
they wanted a steam engine, and then they had a bit of a time crunch because the 4449 wouldn't have been able to get to Chicago real quickly or something like that. And then they restored 2101 and what else? Hold on.
As I was trying to say, as Andrew has secured his puppy, but yeah, the 4449 was responsible for pulling the American Freedom Train in basically the western United States. And of course, during its initial restoration and rebuild, it was painted in America colors. All patriotic, red, white, and blue. It's like America, fuck yeah. And,
America, fuck yeah.
I believe that shortly after that, it was then I don't know the full history, but I want to say that shortly after that, it was repainted back to daylight colors, or did it remain in AFT colors for a while?
I think it returned back into daylight colors.
Daylight colors just look kind of dull in comparison to the overly colorful, I like the Freedom Train livery, not because I'm a redneck country boy, American, whatever. It's because it looks a lot more, appealing,
Well, I love the daylight livery. Fight me.
At the end of the day, BNSF black is best. Lol. We have a civil livery war going on here. But,
it could be worse.
But when was it repainted back into daylight colors then?
I think during 1981, I think.
General way.
Well, needless to say, I think one of the big breaks for the locomotive was when it was used as a sweet-ass getaway car in an action comedy movie, Tough Guys.
Yeah, although it was painted with Gold Coast instead of daylight on the skirting, it was.
Yeah. Plus, fun fact, again, Doyle McCormick, he even starred in the movie. Granted, it was only a little cameo as the engineer of the locomotive.
He's like, you're crazy. Nobody robs trains anymore. And then
someone said,
Lancaster. I don't know. The character.
I only know that scene. I only know that scene, but yeah.
You gonna waste a lot yapping around, or are we gonna rob a train?
But yeah. Meant that Doyle McCormick was also an actor for a few minutes, maybe a few seconds. Because hey, someone with expertise had to drive that locomotive without crashing it into the Mexican border, which was just a prop, not the real thing. Duh. Otherwise, the Mexicans would have had the only GS4, and who knows what the fuck they would have done with it. They would have probably put a freaking sombrero on the stack and then try to run back to the States while Trump was president. Okay, I'm getting all sorts of crazy redneck ideas.
And that's why right now I am now calm. I have
You have your PTSD helper's dog.
Yes.
But like one of the things that I do know is that in 2002, I want to say, or was it 2000?
I believe it was 2000. It was painted in.
In 2000, the 4449 was painted black, and it ran with a modern day diesel electric locomotive with the same road number on an employee appreciation special passenger train on the Burlington Northern and Santa Fe. So, yeah, it was actually kind of cool, and you could say slightly surreal, as Andrew has a somewhat surreal look on his face, because naturally the Southern Pacific during the steam era was a big rival to the Santa Fe, and obviously the Santa Fe eventually merged the Burlington Northern Railroad to become Burlington Northern Santa Fe, or BNSF. Meanwhile, Southern Pacific ended up being absorbed by the Union Pacific. So, yeah, and from what I believe, and from what I've heard, I believe that nowadays, or it kind of always has been, but I want to say that Union Pacific and BNSF are actually fairly good partners. Like, if there's any kind of competition between them, it's probably not that big. Like, sometimes they kind of rely upon each other.
When you like that race between 4449 and 844.
Oh yeah, in the late, I want to say 1989, right? Oh, that was a parallel run to the Los Angeles Union Station in 1980. At some point in the 1980s, when the 844 was still 8444.
But that was the last year.
And I believe painted in Greyhound deco.
But it was the last year that 844 was 8444. I actually have a Berkshire Productions tape. It's about 844 when it was still 8444. It was in 89. But it's mainly like going to like Kansas City to pull steam excursions, mainly pulling freight, unassisted 60 cars.
Damn. Yeah, those two would also meet up again in 2007 for a doubleheader across the Pacific Northwest.
Well, guys, you got the video. Honestly, guys, I actually didn't want to do this video because I knew how mad I was going to get. And now,
I also want to say that nowadays, the 4449 is also kind of exiled from the main line, I think, because of, modern day policies with Amtrak and, of course, Union Pacific.
It's of a running mate, though. This is a little bit less of.
Spokane, Portland, and Seattle 700.
Yes, that's right. I think they're also restoring either a 10-wheeler or a Pacific. I think it might be a Pacific.
A Pacific. I want to say Oregon Steam something 197, which for a long time was actually reserved as Union Pacific, number 3203.
And also, I've unfortunately seen pictures of 4449 wearing a red. Wearing a red thing on its smoke button.
You mean a Mars light?
No, not a Mars light. A thing that is red, something that you wear.
Oh, Christmas hat.
No, not a Christmas hat. It's something trendy nowadays.
Oh, a mask.
Yes, a red mask. Why? It's a steam engine. Why would you need to put a fucking mask on a steam engine?
Because why the hell not, I guess.
Again, if I cover part of my face, I'm going to cover the damn thing. But also, maybe I'm just going to play this song briefly, like the ending of this song. It's from the credits of the Ross Roland DVD. Here we go.
It's going to be John. What if I just... What if I just touch your ear?
Are we still live?
Yeah, we're still live.
There's much more to the story.
Oh, by the way, I also just noticed Dan isn't here. He wasn't here for the whole episode.
Dwight. And it'll
And I also realized that this is our longest episode ever now.
Yeah, nearly 2 hours.
Well, guys, we got the video. This, honestly, I actually didn't want to do this specific video.
Steven, Andrew tried to say something.
Hold on. Song's nearly over.
But guys, I honestly didn't want to do this specific video. But because we got so much, requests for it, here it is. And now you can probably, now you see exactly why I didn't want to do it. Because of how heated I got. In fact, I've never actually had my little puppy here from in any of my streams. This is
So I must say, it was kind of fitting that he comes the Freedom Train there, because after all, 4449 operated the Freedom Train.
this is Boris.
Yeah. So, Andrew, I guess one final thing, if you put 3985 on the list, and my reaction would have been a little something like this.
Well,
Well, let me post a meme that I made.
well, I'm going to end the stream now. So we'll see you guys next time when we're going to be talking about one place that I raged about in this episode. Steamtown National Historic Site.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes, maybe we can tear that apart, and I can talk about how 1278 has ended up somewhere where it shouldn't have been, in favor of the Canuck.
Yeah, more roasting of the canned Canuck.
All right, well, we'll see you guys next time.
Oh, yeah, okay, go ahead and then.
Bye.